Hey everyone, Nicole Young here, and in today's video, I'm going to show you my top 5 Photoshop layers keyboard shortcuts. Let's get to it. The first shortcut involves unlocking background layers. Now, if you're trying to do something to a layer and it won't let you, let's say you wanted to go up to Edit and you wanted to do some transformation. Well, it's not going to let you do that because the layer is locked and it's also the background layer. There are other things that you may come across where it's not going to let you do something unless you have an unlocked non-background layer. To quickly unlock the background layer, the best way to do it is to press and hold the Option or Alt key and then double-click that layer. Now the layer is unlocked and you can go ahead and proceed with whatever it is you wanted to do. The next one is duplicating a layer. Maybe you have a layer that you want to duplicate to make destructive edits to and you want to preserve a copy of it. Or maybe you want to blend a layer. There are a lot of applications for this shortcut. And by the way, this also works with groups, adjustment layers, and so on. Basically anything that is selected in the Layers panel. So the way it works is you have a layer selected and then you use the keyboard shortcut Command or Control J. This also works if you have multiple layers selected. I'll go ahead and add a really quick adjustment layer. I'll just do a really simple curves S-curve. Now if I hold the Shift key and select both of these layers and use that keyboard shortcut Command or Control J, now I have duplicates of both of these layers. The next shortcut is very similar to the duplicate layer shortcut, but in this case I want to merge all of these layers and create a duplicate of that merged copy. Now, if you wanted to just merge the layers, you can always right-click and go down to Merge Visible. But the problem with that is that I lose all of those non-destructive layers in my Layers panel. Instead, what I want to do is create what I see here in the Layers panel, but still retain all of those visible layers as well. So I'm going to go ahead and undo this, and instead I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Command Option Shift E. Now on a PC, that's Control Alt Shift E. This is a useful shortcut if you wanted to create some type of a filter effect that's going to blend with all of the layers. A very popular one that I use quite often is the Orton effect, and I have a tutorial on that. I'm listing it down in the description below. The next shortcut is to quickly change the layer opacity. For demonstration purposes, here I have an image as my bottom layer, and I've just added a very simple color fill layer on top. I'm going to make sure that the layer I want to change the opacity with is selected, and to change the opacity, you simply press the numbers on your keyboard. 1 equals 10%, 2 is 20, 3 is 30, and so on. And then, when you get up to 90%, if you want to go to 100% opacity, press 0. One thing to keep in mind is that the opacity settings on any of the brush type tools is going to supersede the layer's opacity. For example, if I have the brush tool active, if you look up at the top here, it also has an opacity setting. So if I were to press, let's say 5 to go to 50%, it doesn't change the layer opacity, instead it changes the brush opacity. This applies to several of the tools in the toolbar. For the most part, if it's something you are going to brush or sweep across your image, if it has an opacity setting, maybe even a tolerance setting, a strength setting, an exposure setting, pressing those numbers are more likely going to change that setting as opposed to the opacity setting in the Layers panel. A good rule of thumb is before you start changing any opacity setting in the Layers panel, make sure that you press the V key or maybe the H key, which is going to bring you to either the Move tool or the Hand tool. That way you know for sure that you're not going to unintentionally change a brush setting. The last keyboard shortcut I'm going to mention here is to quickly change the blending mode. In the Layers panel, you want to make sure you have the layer active that you want to work with, and then press and hold the Shift key while using the plus or even the minus keys to kind of go back and forth to see how the different blending modes affect your image. Now, in the newer versions of Photoshop, when you click and hover over the different blending modes, you're now going to get a nice preview. I still find the keyboard shortcut, however, to be very useful because I'm able to watch my image and do everything hands-free. Now keep in mind that just like I said with the previous keyboard shortcut about layer opacity, the same thing applies to blending modes. I'm going to jump over to the brush tool real quickly, and if you notice up in the top left, there's also a blending mode setting for brushes. So if I now were to use that same keyboard shortcut, the brush tool settings are going to supersede the layer panel settings. So instead, I would be changing the blending mode of that brush tool. So it's always a good idea to switch over to the move or hand tool or any tool that's not going to be affected by these keyboard shortcuts before you start making changes to the layers panel. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and if you are interested in learning more about photography and post-processing, be sure to hit that subscribe button.